Hello, everyone. Welcome to week two of this fully online semester. I hope everybody is doing well. Um, and let's see. By now, you should have reviewed the syllabus very carefully. Um, view my week one lecture so you have a good idea of how we're going to proceed in this course. It's important to keep track of the syllabus and keep track of Canvas. Again, Canvas parallels the syllabus, um, and feel free to email me if you have any questions at all about anything. Um, I've had a few students email me so far. They saw some confusing things on Canvas or had questions about how the course is going to be run and so on. So please feel free to do that. And if you have any questions, especially about the course material that we're talking about, please feel free to email me. As I mentioned, I'm going to try to proceed here this semester without the real-time Zoom. I find that Zoom is very tedious and you know, difficult to use for a large class such as this. It's hard to really to lecture and to have student interaction, I think. So we'll proceed this way, but again, if you have any thoughts about the class, any questions, feel free to email me. Okay, so this week we're focusing on two topics. One is population growth, and this is a very important, very kind of real world issue and potential problem that I think you can really connect with. So we're going to talk about population growth, first half of my lecture. And then the second lecture, and I'm going to actually post these as separate lectures for week two, but they're both for week two. The second topic is urbanization. And we can think of urbanization as the growth of cities. In the last couple hundred years, to put it one way, we poured a lot of cement in this world to make cities. We've really transformed the world. And so first, we'll look at population growth, and we're going to talk about how rapid population growth has taken place in the last couple hundred years. And then the connection to urbanization is that the majority of this population growth is taking place in cities. Here, this PowerPoint here shows the cover of Time magazine in 1960, and world population hit 3 billion at this point. And so this was a real milestone. In 1960, population growth was becoming a very controversial topic. I guess the fear of a population explosion really became worldwide something very controversial, and a lot of people were really afraid of that population growth. Okay, let's see here. Go to a larger screen. I want to okay. I want to try and share another screen, and hopefully we'll be able to see this, and this will work. There's going to be some bugs as we go along, so hopefully this will come off and you'll be able to view this clearly. This is from the United States Census. This is the United States and World Population Clock. And so let's direct our attention just to one part here. And on your, this would be your right, where it says world population, you can see how rapidly population is growing. Every time an increased number represents another person being born in the world. And so if you just sit here and you start getting mesmerized by that number increasing, world population today is at just about 7.6 billion, um, over twice the amount in 1960. And people were really scared at 1960, thinking that 3 billion people in the world would overwhelm the food supply. And here we are at 7.6 billion. So we're hanging in there. Okay, we go back hopefully to my PowerPoint. Here is the website address for that population column that we just viewed. If you're interested in taking a look at it, you go to the large screen here. So this graph here, I think it really blows my mind. I'd like you to kind of look at it for a couple of minutes here and really try to grasp its basic message here. And so what is the basic message here? That in the last 200 years, population growth has increased dramatically. I don't think dramatic is the right word to use to describe how rapidly population growth has taken place in the last 200 years. If you look towards the bottom right of this graph, you'll see that in the year 1800, world population hit 1 billion people. So 1800, world population hit 1 billion people. That's the figure down there on the right. Let's see. Right there where I circled. That was just 200 years ago. So we're at the year 2020, 220 years ago, I guess. But basically 200 years ago was 1 billion. Now, if we go back in human history here, human beings appeared on the earth somewhere around 200,000 years ago, whatever. There's some debate about that. It's not my area of expertise, but somewhere about 200,000 years ago, boom, human beings are now inhabiting the earth. And for at least the majority of that time, there haven't really been that many people roaming the Earth's surface. It's just been, 100, a few million, 100 million. And it wasn't until, again, going back here, 1492, we hit 500 million people. And something happened here. And what happened? What happened to cause that increase? So keep that in the back of your mind here. Okay, advancing. Oh, okay, my arrows didn't. Oh, let's see. Okay, I'm going to play a little word game with you here, or um, a mind game, I guess I should say. It's based on a mathematical model, and it helps to reveal how rapidly population growth can take place. So we've seen that population growth has been growing at an amazingly rapid pace during the last 200 years. And it went from, again, 1 billion in 1800 to 7.6 billion today. And kind of do the math, and this is, I just found this in a textbook, so I'm assuming it's correct. You go back 30,000 years ago. I don't know why they took 30,000 years ago. You could go probably even 50,000 years ago, whatever. For most of human history, there was one person for every 200 square miles of the Earth's surface. So that's kind of like half of California, something like that. So not a lot of people around. Now, if current rates of population growth continue the way they have since 1800, in 1,000 years, there will be 100 people for each square yard of the Earth's surface. So population growth continues as it has since we saw that upward curve starting in 1800. There would be 100 people for each square yard of the Earth's surface. And so we all know what a yard is. Visualize 1 yard on a football field and make that a square. And there'd be 100 people for each square. So now, of course, that's physically, this is not possible. It's kind of a mathematical game here. But it nonetheless really highlights how rapidly population growth can take place. So let's think, so here's that graph again. Let's think about what are the factors that cause population growth. And maybe you can just take 10 seconds here. If you have a pen in your hand, just jot it down. Jot down some ideas. What causes population growth? So basically, there's 2 things. And it just comes down to very simple kinds of ideas here: the birth rate and the death rate. The more people that are being born, the more population there will be. The higher rate by which people die in society, the lower the population will be. So it's as simple as that. So on one level, we can explain this chart as more people are being born, and more people are being born for sure, and people are living longer. People are living longer because of better medicine and so on. And more people are being born. So what does that mean? You know, family sizes larger. With better medicine, fewer children die at birth. But there's still something missing here. The death rate, the birth rate, something was missing. And I think there's one main thing is missing. You know, what explains the rapid population growth of the last 200 years? And this can be explained by this very important concept referred to as exponential growth. exponential growth. And exponential growth, and I put here, is similar to compound interest. When you put money in a bank, for example, you'll get interest on a larger amount each year. So if you're getting 10% on $100, year two, you have $110 because you have that 10%. But now you're getting 10% interest on $110. So the magnitude each year of that investment starts to grow. That's why they say you should save money. There are different contexts, there are examples of exponential growth. But when we come back to the population, the idea here is that the more people who are having children, the faster world population is going to grow. So if you have 100,000 people giving birth versus 2 million people giving birth, 2 million people giving birth is going to increase the population much faster, and it will continue to grow. So it's really the exponential idea of exponential growth that explains this rapid population growth. Now we'll talk about later in the class the importance of the Industrial Revolution in enabling such rapid population growth. Kingsley Davis makes reference to the Industrial Revolution in his article. Okay. This is another interesting way to think about exponential growth and the possibility that population can grow extremely rapidly. And this is looking at how long it takes for world population to increase by 1 billion people. So looking down on this map here, 1850, the human population reached 1 billion. By 1930, it was 2 billion. This was an increase of 1 billion people. And it took 130 years to achieve that. Then, by 1960, the human population reached 3 billion people. And in this instance, it only took 30 years to go from 2 billion to 3 billion. So again, it's the idea that the more people who are giving birth, more rapidly it's going to expand. Maybe one metaphor, way to visualize this idea is if you throw a big rock in a lake, and the first ripple will be so big. The second kind of ripple will be even larger, and it just starts to expand. The radius of that circle starts to expand more and more. See, in 1975, it only took 15 years to hit 4 billion in world population, and so on. So this, in theory at least, is this idea that in 1,000 years from now, there would be 100 people for every square yard of the Earth's surface. And we know that's not going to happen, but that's what the mathematical formula says can potentially happen. Now take a look here at this graph. And this is a graph that shows world population growth since 1950. So we start here, 1950, there were almost 3 billion people. We hit 3 billion in 1960, which would be right there. And then this is, this is world population growth. By 2050, 30 years from now, world population is projected to be 9 billion. And again, we're at 7.6 billion now. That's right about here. So this is all population. Now, this divides the population growth between less developed countries and more developed countries. Less developed versus more developed countries. Now, who are the more developed countries? The more developed countries generally refer to countries like the United States, countries in Western Europe, Germany, places in Asia, Japan, and so on. They're the wealthier countries. And we can see that in the wealthier countries like the United States, population growth is actually starting to level out. In fact, some advanced countries like Germany are really struggling. They're having zero population growth. And in fact, they're counting on migrants to supply their labor force and so on. Needs that some population growth can fulfill. So the majority of population growth, since 1950 at least, has been taking place in the less developed countries. The best example of the less developed countries are countries in Africa today, where there are high rates of unemployment, there are high rates of poverty. These countries are just generally not very affluent. Their medical systems are not as advanced as they are in the Western or the developed countries. There's a lot of countries in the world where they're transitioning from less developed to more developed. So that's a whole nother topic and subject for debate. But bottom line here, I think, is in the poorer countries is where the population growth is taking place. Okay, let's see. So what can we do to slow population growth? Do we need to slow population growth? Should we be worried about it? What are the potential challenges or threats or problems that could come with rapid population growth? Do we have enough food to supply the world or feed the world's population? If we do need to slow population growth, what can we do? Well, one thing we can do is we can look at the advanced countries and see why is population growth slowing there. People in the advanced countries tend to have fewer children today, which is something one and two. So education is important. Those countries where people are more educated tend to have slower population growth. Birth control is a potential policy to slow population growth. That can be somewhat controversial. Some people are opposed to various forms of birth control. China at one point had a government policy where you could only have one child. And that was intended, obviously, to slow population growth in that country. Okay, so that is about it for this lecture number 1 on population. And then I will post my second lecture and focus on urbanization.